Welcome back. Lincoln currency in the quiet rhythm of everyday change. A single United States 1-cent coin might pass unnoticed from palm to palm, from a gas station counter to a grocery checkout, from a pocket to a piggy bank. Yet every coin tells a story, of design, of metal, of the hands that struck it, and of the decades it has traveled. Among those stories, few intrigue collectors as much as the humble 1-cent piece dated 1975. Although millions of pennies were struck in the mid-1970s, whispers persist of rare survivors, transitional errors, and perfectly preserved examples that have come to symbolize both America's long affection for the Lincoln cent and the possibility that an everyday object could one day be worth a fortune. The 1975 penny carries with it the image that has defined the denomination for more than a century. The right-facing bust of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to honor the centennial of the president's birth. By 1975, the portrait was already familiar to generations of Americans. Its quiet dignity, the high relief of Lincoln's cheek and jaw, the careful treatment of his beard, and the arch of the inscriptions all echoed the sculptor's intent to remind citizens that even a coin of the smallest denomination could embody national ideals. On every 1975 cent, Lincoln faces right toward the inscription Liberty, with the motto "In God We Trust" arching across the top. Beneath the truncation of the bust lies the date 1975, which, depending on where the coin was minted, may be followed by a tiny mintmark letter, a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. Philadelphia produced cents that year as well, though no mintmark appears on those pieces. Each of these letters connects the coin to a different place and process. In Denver, presses thundered under the supervision of the U.S. Mint's Rocky Mountain facility, known for producing coins with crisp strikes and brilliant red luster. In San Francisco, proof coins were struck on polished planchets with mirror-like fields, destined for collectors rather than circulation. The Philadelphia Mint, the nation's oldest, handled the lion's share of everyday cents. Together these mints turned out billions of copper alloy Lincoln cents in 1975, each measuring 19.05 millimeters across and weighing about 3.11 grams, a small, round tablet of metal that carried immense symbolic weight. That weight was the product of a long history. Since 1962, the cent's composition had been 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, an alloy chosen for its color and durability. Each coin cost nearly as much to produce as its face value, yet Americans clung to the penny with a kind of sentimental loyalty. Copper's warm reddish glow came to signify both stability and thrift. In an age before digital payments, pennies filled glass jars and clinked in cash registers. They were the measure of small kindnesses, a tip, a wish tossed into a fountain, a child's first lesson in saving. For collectors, however, the 1975 cent occupies a special place not because of its abundance but because of what it represents in the chronology of U.S. coinage. It stands at the threshold of change. Just a few years later, in 1982, the mint would switch from mostly copper to a copper-plated zinc composition, cutting the coin's weight nearly in half. The 1975 issue therefore marks one of the last full years when every Lincoln cent carried substantial copper content, making it both a nostalgic relic and a tangible store of metal value. As copper prices rose in subsequent decades, even ordinary rolls of pre-1982 pennies gained appeal among hoarders who valued them for their melt content. Yet the fascination with the 1975 cent goes far beyond metal economics. Among hobbyists, rumors circulate about exceptionally rare errors, double dies, off-center strikes, or transitional planchets that might command astonishing prices if authenticated. Stories of a single coin allegedly selling for tens of millions, even $78 million, echo through online forums and late-night TV features. While numismatic experts agree that such valuations are exaggerated, they reveal something important about the human imagination. People yearn to believe that a forgotten coin in a drawer might conceal unimaginable wealth. Every penny becomes a lottery ticket, every date a potential doorway into hidden history. To understand why these legends persist, one must look back at the evolution of the Lincoln cent's design. When Brenner's portrait first appeared in 1909, it replaced the Indian head design that had graced cents since the 1850s. Brenner drew inspiration from a photograph by Matthew Brady, capturing Lincoln's contemplative expression rather than his political vigor. The reverse originally featured two simple wheat ears framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, a design that symbolized agricultural prosperity. In 1959, on the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the Mint introduced Frank Gasparo's new reverse showing the Lincoln Memorial, a neoclassical shrine that mirrored the front's portrait in architectural form. The 1975 cent, therefore, carried the memorial reverse, a tiny but precise rendering complete with a faint image of the seated Lincoln visible between the columns if examined under magnification. That detail enchanted collectors. It meant that the cent not only honored the president with his likeness on the obverse but also depicted the monument dedicated to him on the reverse, a coin that in miniature contained both man and memorial, image and ideal. The symbolic symmetry resonated deeply during the 1970s, a decade marked by political turmoil and economic uncertainty. Holding a 1975 cent, Americans saw a reminder of endurance and unity. From a technical standpoint, each coin began as a blank planchet punched from rolled sheets of copper alloy. These blanks were annealed in furnaces to soften them, tumbled to remove scale, and fed into massive presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. The obverse die carried Brenner's design, the reverse bore Gasparo's. When struck, the force imprinted every microscopic detail, from the texture of Lincoln's hair to the fine lines of the memorial steps. Quality control inspectors checked samples for clarity and rim definition. Those destined for proof sets at San Francisco underwent additional polishing to produce mirror fields and frosted devices. Despite the scale of production, more than 5 billion cents across all mints in 1975, tiny variations inevitably occurred. Some dies developed doubling, where misalignment between hub impressions caused slight overlapping images of the date or lettering. Others suffered filled demint marks or small die cracks that created raised lines on the finished coins. Most of these minor anomalies had only modest value, but in rare circumstances an unusual error can transform an otherwise ordinary cent into a coveted rarity worth thousands. That possibility fuels the enduring fascination with every 1975 penny found in change. Over time, public interest in coin collecting has waxed and waned, but the 1975 cent remains a staple for new hobbyists. It's easily accessible yet rich in context, inviting study of minting processes, metal composition, and design evolution. Many begin their collections with Lincoln cents, assembling date and mint mark sets that trace the entire series from 1909 to the present. In that continuum, the 1975 issue serves as a bridge between the classic copper era and the modern era of zinc, a tangible artifact of pre-Reagan era America. Economic conditions in the 1970s lend further texture to the story. Inflation was climbing, energy costs were soaring, and debates raged over the usefulness of the penny itself. Yet the mint continued to produce billions each year, partly because vending machines and accounting systems still required them, and partly because public sentiment resisted change. To remove the penny would have felt like erasing a piece of national identity. So the 1975 cent rolled out by the truckload, each coin costing the government roughly 0.9 of a cent to make. Adjusted for copper prices today, the metal content alone would exceed face value, a curious twist that blurs the line between currency and commodity. The myth of the $78 million penny taps into this sense of paradox. Somewhere, people imagine, a mint employee struck a one-of-a-kind coin, perhaps on the wrong planchet, perhaps with a double date, and it escaped into the world, unnoticed until discovered decades later by a lucky finder. Photographs circulate online purporting to show such a specimen, gleaming like treasure. Though no verified sale of any 1975 cent has ever approached such a figure, the legend itself keeps the coin in the public eye, turning casual curiosity into fascination. Every viral story or tabloid headline sends news seekers to their jars of change, magnifying glass in hand. From a psychological perspective, this phenomenon reveals as much about collectors as it does about coins. The belief that an everyday object could hold extraordinary value speaks to hope, perseverance, and the democratic nature of discovery. Unlike art masterpieces locked in museums, Rare coins can surface anywhere, in a parking lot find, a roll from the bank, or a forgotten box in an attic. The 1975 penny thus becomes a metaphor for potential, proof that history and luck may intersect in the palm of one's hand. Even without mythical valuations, certain high-grade examples truly are worth significant sums. A 1975's proof sent in flawless deep cameo condition might fetch several $100s at auction. Superb uncirculated coins graded MS-67 or better by professional services can command comparable premiums. The market for top-tier Lincoln cents has remained resilient, driven by registry-set collectors who compete for the finest known specimens. As populations of these elite coins remain tiny, often fewer than a few dozen, their prices can spike. The life of a 1975 penny does not end when it leaves the mint. It begins. From the moment it tumbles from the counting machinery into giant bags bound for Federal Reserve vaults, the coin enters the vast circulatory system of the American economy. Pallets of cents move by truck and rail to banks across the country, from large urban centers to the smallest rural towns. There, the coins are rolled, exchanged, and dispersed into daily use. A 1975 cent might have been given as change for a cup of coffee the year Jaws dominated movie screens or slid into a parking meter during the bicentennial celebrations a year later. Every small transaction leaves microscopic traces on its surface, nicks, scratches, and faint discolorations that together compose an unrepeatable biography in metal. Over the years, a penny passes through hundreds, even thousands, of hands. It may rest in a child's lunchbox, then reappear decades later in a coin-sorting machine, its copper tone now mellowed to dark brown. The beauty of the 1975 cent lies partly in this endurance. Copper, unlike the nickel-plated surfaces of later coins, develops a patina that deepens rather than degrades. Each shade of red, brown, or chocolate tells a story about where the coin has been: humidity, temperature, the oils of human skin, the pockets of denim or leather where it has traveled. Collectors call this toning, and in certain patterns it can enhance rather than diminish appeal. A coin with rainbow toning or iridescent sheen may command a premium for its uniqueness. As decades pass, many 1975 cents are lost to attrition, worn smooth until their details fade. Yet some survive in rolls or jars untouched, having spent most of their lives in darkness. When rediscovered, these coins can appear astonishingly fresh, their original mint luster still flashing under light. Such finds often rekindle the question: could one of these be the fabled multimillion-dollar rarity whispered about online? The answer lies in careful observation. Authentic errors that significantly raise value are almost always visible with the naked eye. Collectors look for doubled lettering on "I in God We Trust" or "Liberty," off-center strikes that leave portions of the blank unstruck, or coins struck on wrong planchets, such as a cent accidentally minted on a dime blank. Each confirmed anomaly represents a glimpse into the mint's intricate production process. While none has ever approached tens of millions in documented sales, some genuine 1970s Lincoln cent errors have sold for thousands. A dramatic 1970s double-die obverse, for instance, commands strong prices. Thus, the 1975 date attracts hopeful scrutiny from anyone who dreams of similar fortune. The excitement of searching does not depend solely on money. It springs from curiosity. In an age of digital finance, handling coins connects people to a tangible past. The 1975 cent, struck in the same metal and diameter as its early 20th century ancestors, acts like a time capsule. It evokes a world before smartphones, before debit cards, when spare change jingled in every pocket. To many, this nostalgia is worth more than any speculative value. Within the numismatic community, specialists document each year's mintage and variations. According to Mint records, the Philadelphia Mint produced well over 5 billion Lincoln cents in 1975, the Denver Mint around 4 billion, and the San Francisco facility roughly 2 million proofs. Those figures underscore the coin's ubiquity, yet paradoxically, scarcity arises from condition rather than quantity. Out of billions struck, perhaps only a tiny fraction remain in near-perfect mint state. A pristine example becomes an ambassador for its entire class, a single survivor representing the craftsmanship of an era. Collectors. Sometimes use magnification to admire subtleties invisible to the casual eye. The sculptural modeling of Lincoln's cheek, the texture of the bow tie, the spacing of the memorial columns. These details reveal the artistry behind what most people regard as a mere token of 1 cent. When viewed under proper lighting, the micro-engraved initials VDB for Victor David Brenner appear at the truncation of Lincoln's shoulder, a small signature linking 1975 back to 1909. The continuity of design across such a span gives the coin a quiet gravitas. Few national currencies retain a single portrait for over a century. The Lincoln cent's longevity speaks to the enduring power of the image and the ideals it embodies. In the 1970s, the United States Mint confronted growing challenges: rising metal prices, outdated machinery, and the public's conflicting desires for both innovation and tradition. Experimental planchets of aluminum, steel, and other alloys were tested but never widely adopted. Thus, the 1975 copper cent became part of the last stable chapter before the great shift of 1982. Collectors today recognize this as a dividing line. Holding a 1975 penny means holding the end of a metallic era, a farewell to the heavy red discs that defined pocket change for generations. Meanwhile, myths of extraordinary value continued to grow, fueled by the information age. In the early 2000s, viral posts and televised segments began circulating claims that certain 1975 pennies had sold for staggering sums: $20, $50, even $78 million. Experts consistently debunk these stories, yet they spread faster than corrections. Their persistence highlights a modern paradox. In an era when accurate data is instantly available, sensational tales still capture the imagination more effectively than facts. The figure of 78 million became a symbol not of a specific transaction but of boundless possibility. If a simple penny could be said to reach such a valuation, then perhaps any forgotten object might harbor hidden riches. Beyond rumor, the actual market for 1975 Lincoln cents is steady and measurable. Auction archives show high-grade examples graded MS-67 or better fetching several $100s, sometimes more when color and strike are exceptional. Proof coins with deep cameo contrast can achieve similar prices. These sums, while far from mythical millions, testify to sustained collector interest. They also illustrate how condition, certification, and provenance converge to determine real-world value. To understand why the myth of massive worth persists, one might reflect on the emotional layers embedded in the coin. A penny is universal, accessible to everyone. Declaring that one such coin might secretly be worth more than an entire mansion transforms an ordinary object into a ticket to dreams. It invites participation. Anyone could check their change jar and imagine fortune within reach. The legend of the 1975 cent thus functions as modern folklore, a story that blends history, hope, and the allure of chance. Underneath the myth, there remains genuine fascination with the artistry of American coinage. The engravers and mint engineers who produced the 1975 cent worked within precise tolerances, balancing mass production with aesthetic integrity. Each die was hand-prepared, polished, and inspected. When thousands of tons of pressure struck the blank, metal flowed into every crevice of the engraving. The sharpness of Lincoln's profile, or the crisp lines of the memorial columns depend on this perfect union of design and physics. It is a marriage of art and engineering rarely appreciated in daily commerce. The copper itself contributes to the mystique. A natural element mined from deep within the earth, copper carries symbolic associations of warmth and endurance. Ancient civilizations used it for tools, ornamentation, and early coinage long before paper currency existed. When Americans handle a 1975 cent, they are touching the same substance that circulated in Roman and Greek economies millennia ago. The continuity of material connects the modern world with antiquity, infusing even the smallest denomination with historic gravity. Another layer of intrigue surrounds the mintmarks themselves. The small d or s beside the date may seem trivial, yet for collectors these letters open entire subfields of study. Differences in die characteristics, spacing, or placement can identify specific die pairs. A subtle tilt of the mintmark or a filled loop can distinguish one variety from another. Specialists compile catalogs documenting each discovery, contributing to a living archive of minting history. The 1975 cents, struck in Denver, often display sharper details due to fresh dies and the mint's high standards, while Philadelphia issues can exhibit minor softness in the strike. Such nuances may appear microscopic but form the foundation of advanced numismatic research. In addition to condition and variety, provenance can enhance a coin's appeal. A 1975 cent preserved in an original mint-sealed bag, untouched since its striking, offers a tangible link to the minting process itself. Collectors cherish the possibility of acquiring coins directly from government packaging, as it assures authenticity and freshness. Similarly, proof sets from San Francisco serve as time capsules of the era, their mirror surfaces reflecting the design exactly as intended by the engraver. The journey from production to collector cabinet reflects a broader cultural evolution. In 1975, coin collecting was among the most popular hobbies in America, promoted through magazines, fairs, and television programs. Families searched their change for wheat cents, silver dimes, or rare nickels. Local coin clubs flourished. Today, the hobby endures, but in a digital age, collectors share discoveries on social media, trade through online auctions, and analyze high-resolution photographs rather than coins in hand. Yet the thrill remains unchanged. The heartbeat that quickens when an unusual gleam in a handful of change hints at something extraordinary. Some see in the 1975 cent a metaphor for overlooked value. Just as a welwa. The tale of the 1975 1-cent piece unfolds further when we step back and look at how people's feelings toward coins have changed. A coin is never only metal, it is a mirror of its era. The mid-1970s were a time of transformation in the United States. The nation had emerged from the Vietnam conflict, endured the Watergate scandal, and was rediscovering its identity through art, music, and a new wave of optimism. Into this environment the familiar Lincoln cent continued to flow, quiet and constant, a piece of continuity in a decade otherwise filled with change. Every grocery store drawer, every laundromat coin box, and every school cafeteria cash register contained thousands of them, each reflecting light slightly differently, each carrying a miniature portrait of steadfast leadership. The average American rarely paused to think about the origin of these small discs. Yet at the mint, entire teams labored to ensure that every cent met the required tolerances for diameter, weight, and alloy. The standard weight for the 1975 cent remained 3.11 grams, and inspectors used precision balances to check random samples. If a batch strayed too far from the standard, the entire lot could be melted and reused. That attention to detail reveals why genuine deviations, off-metal strikes or planchet errors, are so fascinating. They are the exceptions that prove how tight the system usually is. Imagine, for a moment, the life of a single cent from that year. It might have been struck in Denver in early spring, tumbling with thousands of others into a huge canvas bag, then loaded into an armored truck bound for a regional Federal Reserve office. From there, it traveled to a local bank, where a teller broke open the rolls to fill cash drawers. Perhaps a young clerk at a record store handed it out as change for a vinyl album. The coin may have lingered in a purse or pocket, fallen between sofa cushions, been retrieved by a child who added it to a growing collection. Over time it circulated, lost its brilliant red glow, gained the soft matte finish that collectors call brown. Decades later, when found again, that same coin would carry within its scratches and patina the fingerprints of countless lives. This sense of continuity is part of what makes the 1975 penny so captivating. It has no intrinsic rarity, yet its ubiquity allows each person to encounter history in the palm of their hand. The stories of extraordinary value, such as the oft-repeated claim of a $78 million specimen, feed on this accessibility. The notion that something so common could harbor unimaginable wealth turns the everyday world into a treasure hunt. In this sense, the legend performs a cultural function. It keeps people looking, observing, and asking questions about how things are made and why they matter. When collectors talk about a coin being worth big money, what they usually mean is that condition and context have converged to elevate it. Coins struck with perfect alignment, preserved immediately, and graded at the highest levels can indeed be worth thousands. The step from thousands to millions is the step from fact to fable, yet the desire that fuels it is genuine. Humans have always told stories of hidden riches, the lost gold city, the buried chest, the rare artifact that changes a life. In modern folklore, the rare penny fills that role. It is small enough to be believable, domestic enough to sit in your pocket, yet mysterious enough to inspire a search. Back in the numismatic world, specialists spend long hours studying die states and microscopic details. By analyzing die cracks, polishing lines, and minor shifts in lettering, they can trace the life cycle of the tools used to strike coins. A die might produce hundreds of thousands of cents before wearing out. In the case of 1975, many of those dies were rehardened mid-year, which subtly affected the depth of relief. For most people, such details go unnoticed, but for historians they reveal the technological rhythm of the mint. The penny is not only a financial instrument, it is a record of industrial practice. Because the 1975 issue predates the composition change of 1982, it remains part of the coveted copper era. Each coin contains about 2 cents worth of copper at current market prices, a quirk that fascinates economists. It costs more to make the penny than its face value, yet it continues to exist largely for tradition's sake. This paradox underscores how money functions as a social contract rather than pure commodity. The coin's symbolism outweighs its material worth. The design itself continues to reward close study. On the obverse, the deep recess around Lincoln's profile creates subtle shadows that shift as light moves across the surface. Brenner's modeling was based on plaster casts derived from photographs. The skill of the engraver lies in translating a two-dimensional image into a living, dimensional form small enough to fit on a coin. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's depiction of the Lincoln Memorial required mathematical precision to ensure that its perspective appeared natural despite the coin's curvature. Under magnification, the steps, columns, and even the central statue of Lincoln emerge with astonishing clarity. That a single blow of a press could capture so much detail in a disc less than an inch wide remains one of the quiet marvels of minting. Over time, oxidation transforms that crisp copper glow into hues of deep orange, red, or brown. Collectors classify these colors carefully. Red, for coins retaining 95% of their original color. Red-brown, for those partly toned, and brown, for fully oxidized pieces. The color designation can double or have a coin's value. In this way, chemistry intersects with economics. Even the slow reaction of metal with air influences market perception, demonstrating how living the material of a coin truly is. In the years since 1975, the coin has also become a point of comparison in debates about currency efficiency. Many economists argue that the penny should be retired, as its purchasing power has diminished dramatically. Yet public opinion remains protective. Surveys consistently show that Americans, though rarely using pennies, prefer to keep them in circulation. The image of Lincoln seems too iconic to abandon. As long as his portrait endures, the 1975 cent will not only represent a bygone era of copper coinage but also a continuing symbol of national identity. Within collector circles, enthusiasm for assembling complete Lincoln cent sets remains strong. Albums with hundreds of slots invite participants to fill each space, every date, every mint mark, every variation. The 1975 entry sits there as a mid-series issue, easy to acquire but satisfying to include. In mint state, it gleams beside earlier wheatback examples and later zinc versions, forming a visual timeline of American history in miniature. Some collectors specialize further, focusing on one date across all grades, mint marks, and die varieties. For them, 1975 offers a manageable challenge, abundant yet nuanced, with enough minor differences to sustain years of study. Auction results continue to record incremental growth for the finest examples. When a coin graded MS67RD or higher appears, competitive bidding often drives prices beyond previous benchmarks. The market's appetite for perfection demonstrates that even within a common issue, excellence commands recognition. This phenomenon parallels art collecting. A painting may exist in multiple prints, but the flawless original carries singular prestige. In that sense, The pursuit of the perfect 1975 cent mirrors the human pursuit of perfection itself. The mythic stories of vast fortunes add a touch of fantasy to an otherwise disciplined field. A video might circulate claiming that a single coin discovered in a family drawer was sold for tens of millions. An image might be shared with exaggerated numbers. While experts clarify that no such transaction occurred, the fascination brings newcomers to the hobby. Every new collector who starts examining coins because of these tales ends up learning genuine history, metallurgy, and design appreciation. The myth therefore serves an educational purpose, even when its numbers are imaginary. For those who handle coins professionally, each piece offers a moment of meditation. Under a loupe, the small landscape of a cent becomes a world unto itself. One can trace the microgrooves left by die polishing, see where the metal flowed during striking, and appreciate how the raised rim protects the inner devices. The physical object rewards patience and observation, the same virtues that Lincoln himself embodied. It's fitting that his likeness graces a coin that teaches the value of careful attention. In a broader cultural context, the persistence of the penny demonstrates the endurance of small things in a world of big data and rapid transactions. Even as economies move toward electronic payments, people keep jars of change at home, perhaps unconsciously preserving a tactile link to earlier generations. The 1975 cent, being of solid copper, feels distinct between the fingers, a slightly heavier, warmer sensation than modern zinc cents. That difference in feel alone connects the holder to history. For museum curators, such sensory details are invaluable. Exhibits on American industry often display minting equipment beside rows of coins from different eras. Visitors can trace the evolution of design and composition, seeing how technological advances mirror cultural shifts. In such displays, the 1975 cent often appears as part of the transitional period, a bridge between classic and modern coinage. Its reddish color glows beneath display lights, capturing attention even amid rarer specimens. As the narrative of this small coin unfolds, it becomes clear that its worth cannot be measured solely in dollars, be they 1 cent or 78 million. You can replace this text with any text you wish. You can either write in this text box or paste your own text here. Try different languages and voices. Change the speed and the pitch of the voice. You can even tweak the SSML, speech synthesis markup language, to control how the different sections of the text sound. Click on SSML above to give it a try. Enjoy using text-to-speech. When people look back on the mid-1970s, the world that produced the 1975 cent seems both distant and familiar. It was a time when inflation made headlines, when the nightly news carried stories about oil shortages and changing social values. Yet through all of that, the small copper penny remained the same. Its stability carried quiet reassurance. Every pocketful of change was a miniature archive of the nation's continuity. Inside the United States Mint, however, engineers and engravers were constantly refining their craft. Every die used to strike a coin began as a steel cylinder, carefully machined and heat-treated. Master hubs bore the positive image of the design. From these, working dies were created through multiple impressions, a process that demanded precision measured in thousandths of an inch. If a die was slightly misaligned during hubbing, the result could be a doubled image. It is this mechanical possibility that gives rise to the double die varieties collectors search for so eagerly. In 1975, as in other years, the minting process balanced speed and accuracy. Billions of pieces had to be produced without sacrificing clarity, a challenge that required constant monitoring. The rhythm of production was almost musical, blanks fed into presses, coins struck, conveyors humming as each new batch moved toward counting and packaging. Technicians listened for the distinctive metallic chime that indicated proper striking pressure. A duller sound might mean a clogged die or foreign material in the press. For those who worked there, the pennies were not abstractions but the product of craftsmanship. They knew that even a coin worth only 1 cent demanded respect. Outside the mint, small communities of collectors formed through coin clubs and correspondence. Before the internet, information traveled through newsletters and word of mouth. Someone might hear of a strange 1975 cent with an unusually thick rim or faint doubling on the date, and the story would spread from meeting to meeting. Some of these reports proved genuine, most were harmless exaggerations. Still, the shared curiosity built friendships and sustained the hobby. The penny became a token of connection as much as of commerce. The 1975 cent also appeared in countless childhood memories. Children learned arithmetic by counting pennies, filled paper rolls to deposit at banks, or pressed them into souvenir elongating machines at fairs. The coin's small size made it approachable, a piece of history that anyone could own. Decades later, adults would rediscover those early coins in drawers and realize that the little discs had traveled with them through life stages. This emotional link is another form of value, one that no auction price can quantify. As technology advanced, so did the methods of coin preservation. Collectors once stored their finds in cardboard folders that left coins exposed to air. Later they adopted inert plastic holders that sealed out moisture. High-resolution photography allowed experts to document each variety, and online databases cataloged every known error. The 1975 cent, once just another date in a long series, gained renewed attention as enthusiasts uploaded images and debated fine distinctions in mintmark placement or surface texture. The digital age gave the penny new life as an object of shared study. Within this global conversation, myths continued to circulate. The rumor of a 1975 penny worth $78 million resurfaced periodically, usually accompanied by photographs of ordinary coins under dramatic lighting. Even after experts explained that no such sale had occurred, the legend persisted. Its appeal lay not in accuracy but in the dream it represented, that something overlooked could prove extraordinary. Each retelling invited people to look more closely at the objects around them. In that sense, the myth functions as a kind of folk lesson in observation and curiosity. Meanwhile, the legitimate market for high-grade examples grew steadily. Major grading services reported small but consistent submissions of 1975 cents, many of which graded between MS-65 and MS-67. When a particularly flawless specimen appeared, full red color, no contact marks, sharply struck details, it attracted competitive bidding among registry collectors. Prices in the hundreds of dollars might not match the wild rumors, but they demonstrated genuine demand. The highest quality coins are finite. Once encapsulated, they become benchmarks against which others are measured. Understanding why collectors care about these nuances requires recognizing how grading merges art and science. The gleam of a freshly struck copper surface, called luster, arises from microscopic flow lines created as metal moves under pressure. If those lines remain unbroken, light dances across the surface in a characteristic cartwheel pattern. A single fingerprint or hairline scratch disrupts that effect. Evaluating a coin's grade thus demands both technical knowledge and aesthetic sensitivity. When enthusiasts examine a 1975 cent under magnification, they are not just counting flaws. They are reading the story of how the coin was made and how it survived. Beyond numismatics, the penny has served as a cultural symbol. Writers use it to evoke thrift, luck, or humility. A penny found on the ground becomes a small omen. A jar of pennies represents patience and accumulation. The 1975 issue, by virtue of its date, often appears in period films or art projects set in the decade of disco and denim. Its reddish tone, captured in close-up cinematography, conveys warmth and authenticity. Even people with no interest in collecting recognize its visual language. The profile of Lincoln, the temple-like memorial on the reverse, the gleam of honest copper. In economic discussions, the coin sparks perennial debates about cost efficiency. Analysts calculate that it now takes more than a cent to produce a penny, raising questions about whether the denomination should continue. Yet whenever proposals to abolish it arise, public sentiment pushes back. Citizens write to newspapers defending the coin as a link to history and a tribute to Lincoln. The 1975 cent stands as evidence of that emotional attachment. To hold one is to hold a piece of the nation's continuity, an artifact of both sentiment and practicality. From a metallurgical perspective, its composition tells another story. The copper alloy used for the 1975 cent was chosen for stability, 95% copper, the remainder zinc and tin. When heated and struck, the alloy flows cleanly and resists corrosion. Over decades, slight variations in composition produce subtle differences in color and tone, giving each coin a unique character. Researchers analyzing archival records have even traced minor shifts in alloy sources to fluctuations in global copper supply. Thus, the penny connects local minting to international trade networks, proof that even the smallest coin reflects global economics. For museum conservators, preserving these coins requires controlled environments. Copper reacts to humidity and sulfur compounds in the air. Left unprotected, it can develop verdigris or spots. The challenge lies in maintaining the natural patina without allowing destructive corrosion. Properly stored, a 1975 cent can remain pristine for centuries, its surface freezing a moment in time. In this sense, each coin is an experiment in permanence. Collectors who study die varieties sometimes describe the 1975 series as tranquil, few dramatic errors, consistent quality, no major redesigns. That calmness has its own appeal. It represents the mint operating smoothly after years of experimentation. The coins of 1975, solid and uniform, are like the steady heartbeat of everyday commerce. Yet within that regularity lie infinite micro-differences, minute shifts in die alignment, faint polish lines, slight toning variations. To the trained eye, each coin is distinct. In the half-century since their creation, 1975 pennies have witnessed enormous technological change. They have passed through vending machines, cash registers, and now coin-sorting robots. Some have traveled abroad with tourists and returned decades later through currency exchanges. Others lie buried in gardens or embedded in concrete sidewalks, small time capsules awaiting discovery. Each surviving piece connects the present to 1975 through an unbroken chain of use. The fascination these coins inspire has less to do with wealth than with wonder. When people share stories of a coin worth $78 million, they are really expressing awe at how value can be hidden in plain sight. Whether that number is fact or fiction matters less than the imagination it stirs. The penny becomes a lens through which to view history, economics, and art all at once. Even if someday the United States retires the 1-cent coin, the 1975 issue will endure in collections, museums, and memories. It will remind future generations of a time when copper still carried the nation's smallest denomination, and when the simple act of examining a coin could connect a person to the grand story of their country. Each 1975 cent, no matter its condition, holds within it the resonance of millions of lives and transactions, a quiet testimony to endurance. As the story of the 1975 cent moves deeper into the present, one begins to realize that its greatest fascination lies in its ordinariness. There are coins that were struck in small numbers, coins made from precious metals, coins that commemorate great events, yet the Lincoln cent of 1975 belongs to none of those categories. It is a coin of the everyday, and that is precisely why it endures. When collectors hold it up to the light, they are looking not only at a piece of copper but at a record of millions of daily exchanges, moments so small they almost escape notice yet together form the texture of a nation's life. Every coin starts as an idea. Before steel meets copper, there are meetings, designs, and approvals. For the Lincoln cent, the idea stretches back to 1909 when the nation sought to honor its 16th president on the centennial of his birth. Victor David Brenner's portrait replaced the old Indian head design and immediately became iconic. Over the decades that followed, small modifications adjusted lettering or relief, but the essence remained the same. By the time 1975 arrived, Americans had been carrying Lincoln's image for 66 years. The design had become so familiar that it seemed almost eternal, a constant presence in a changing world. At the Denver Mint, where the D mint mark denoted origin, production during 1975 reached billions of pieces. The roar of presses echoed day and night, each machine striking up to 120 coins per minute. Workers monitored pressure gauges, die temperatures, and feed rates. Quality control technicians pulled samples at regular intervals, measuring weight and inspecting for strike sharpness. They recorded the results in logbooks now archived by the U.S. Mint, pages filled with handwritten numbers that collectively document the heartbeat of production. That documentation reminds us that behind every coin lies human labor: machinists, engravers, inspectors, packers, and drivers who moved the finished rolls to banks across the country. When a coin leaves the mint, its story only begins. The journey of a 1975 penny can be imagined as a series of brief encounters: a clerk giving change for a newspaper, a child saving it in a piggy bank, a bus passenger dropping it into the fare box. These tiny exchanges knit together the economy at the most granular level. Each coin becomes a traveler, anonymous yet essential, passing quietly from hand to hand. Some are lost almost immediately, others circulate for decades. A few, perhaps spared by accident, slip into collections and rest untouched, their surfaces preserving the bright red shimmer of freshly struck copper. In numismatic terms, the distinction between a circulated and an uncirculated coin is vast. Circulation dulls the luster, introduces contact marks, and rounds the edges of lettering. An uncirculated 1975 cent, by contrast, still glows with the radiance of minting. Light moves across its surface like ripples over water, revealing minute details that ordinary handling would erase. Collectors treasure that radiance because it is fleeting, a record of perfection at the moment of creation. It's the difference between potential and experience. One coin remains unmarked by the world, the other bears its traces. The 1975 cents reverse still carried the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. The memorial's symmetry mirrors the stability that the mint wished to convey. Each column represents unity. The central statue of Lincoln symbolizes enduring ideals. Under magnification, one can see the subtle engraving that shapes the steps and pillars. These features are so fine that any misalignment during striking would blur them, making the sharpness of well-preserved examples a testament to precision engineering. By the time this coin circulated, the U.S. was facing rising metal costs. Discussions about changing the penny's composition had already begun, though the actual transition to zinc cores would not occur until 1982. That historical context adds meaning to the 1975 issue. It stands near the end of the solid copper era, a last echo of the traditional alloy that had defined the cent for generations. To hold one is to touch that threshold between old and new monetary realities. Stories about the coin's supposed multimillion-dollar value continue to capture imaginations. They arise whenever someone discovers an unusual tone or blemish and wonders if it might be unique. Internet forums overflow with photographs of pennies accompanied by hopeful captions. Could this be the rare one? The human wish to find unexpected fortune is timeless. Even though experts explain that ordinary 1975 cents are worth face value, the possibility of exception keeps people searching. That search, in turn, draws new participants into numismatics, where they soon learn to appreciate the genuine factors that determine rarity: minting errors, die states, provenance, and condition. A handful of authentic errors from 1975 do exist: off-center strikes, broad strikes, double-struck examples, and coins struck on foreign or transitional planchets. These anomalies can command prices ranging from modest to impressive, depending on clarity and appeal. Yet even the most spectacular 1975 error owes its fascination to the baseline familiarity of the regular coin. The contrast between normality and deviation gives meaning to both. Collectors often speak of the sound of copper. When dropped gently onto a wooden table, a pre-1982 cent emits a distinctive ring, higher and more resonant than the duller thud of a later zinc cent. That sound has become a kind of signature, instantly recognizable to those who handle coins frequently. It's another reminder that value is not only visual, it's sensory. The weight, color, and even sound of a coin convey information about its substance, and in the decades after 1975, the penny gradually shifted from everyday necessity to nostalgic token. Credit cards, digital payments, and rounding policies reduced its use, yet it persisted in jars, drawers, and glove compartments. Economists predicted its disappearance. Citizens quietly disagreed. To many Americans, the penny remains an emblem of thrift and good luck. Dropping it into a fountain or leaving one on a counter feels like a small ritual of optimism. The 1975 cent participates in that collective superstition. its gleam symbolizing a wish carried forward. Museums and educational exhibits sometimes display enlarged reproductions of the cent, inviting visitors to study Lincoln's portrait in detail. They point out Brenner's initials, VDB, at the shoulder, discuss the techniques of die engraving, and explain how billions of identical impressions can still contain individual character. Children leave these exhibits with pockets full of renewed curiosity, sometimes deciding to start their own small collections. A single shiny 1975 penny can be the seed of a lifelong interest in history and art. From an artistic standpoint, the design of the Lincoln cent bridges classical and modern aesthetics. Brenner drew inspiration from European medallic art, emphasizing depth and realism, while Gasparo's reverse reflected mid-century American monumentality. Together they created a composition that feels timeless. In the 1975 issue, that design had reached visual maturity, refined through decades of minor adjustments yet still faithful to the original intent. To study the coin under magnification is to see how subtle craftsmanship communicates dignity and continuity on a tiny canvas. Over the years, copper's surface chemistry has become part of the coin's allure. Exposure to air produces a spectrum of tones: reds, oranges, browns, and even purples under certain conditions. Collectors prize natural toning that enhances rather than obscures detail. Artificial toning, achieved through heat or chemicals, is frowned upon, yet distinguishing between the two can challenge even experts. Thus, each 1975 cent carries its own aesthetic identity, a miniature landscape painted by time and environment. The legacy of the penny extends beyond numismatics into language itself. Phrases like, "A penny for your thoughts," or "A penny saved is a penny earned," reflect a cultural relationship with this coin that goes back centuries. The 1975 issue participates in that linguistic tradition, turning literal currency into metaphor. Its endurance in speech mirrors its endurance in circulation. When historians of material culture examine coins, they see them as artifacts of collective belief. A 1975 cent embodies trust in the U.S. government's promise, the efficiency of industrial systems, and the personal rituals of saving and spending. It links individuals to institutions, the tangible to the symbolic. The myth of a $78 million penny, while numerically exaggerated, captures the emotional truth that money's power lies not only in economics but in imagination. Today, serious collectors still seek the sharpest examples, chasing that elusive perfect grade that might set a new record. Others simply keep a single 1975 penny as a keepsake, a reminder of childhood or family history. Both approaches honor the same underlying fascination, the idea that within an object so small resides a story so large, and so the 1975 cent continues its quiet existence, humble, abundant, yet inexhaustibly interesting. Every time someone pauses to look closely at one, to notice the subtle shine or wonder about its journey, the coin's story expands a little more. In that ongoing act of curiosity lies its true worth, far beyond any speculative number printed on a rumor. By the time the 21st century dawned, the 1975 cent had already traveled through more than a quarter-century of American life. Yet it remained stubbornly present, showing up in cash drawers, donation boxes, and between couch cushions. The copper color might have darkened, the edges might have softened, but the image of Lincoln still looked outward with the same calm expression. It had outlasted fashions, technologies, and even the concept of what a cent could buy. That endurance alone made it remarkable. Economists began to treat the penny as a case study in the psychology of money. They noted that people's attachment to it went beyond logic. Even when the coin's purchasing power slipped toward meaninglessness, citizens resisted its disappearance. Researchers ran experiments showing that when participants were given a choice between rounding prices or keeping exact change, most preferred precision. The penny, they concluded, had become a symbol of fairness, proof that every amount, however small, mattered. In that light, the 1975 cent represents not only history but a certain American insistence on accuracy and equality in exchange. For numismatists, meanwhile, the coin remained a fertile field for study. Advanced microscopes and digital imaging allowed new discoveries. Dye-polished lines that mapped the minting process like geological strata, tiny chips and lettering that identified specific production batches, and subtle color gradations revealing the influence of storage environments. Modern research labs could even analyze trace elements to determine the origin of the copper itself. In a world that prizes high technology, the old coin became a medium for new science. Collectors who specialize in copper color study sometimes lay dozens of 1975 cents side by side under standardized light. They describe hues in poetic terms: sunset red, autumn orange, mahogany brown. They note how coins stored in paper rolls tone differently from those kept in plastic, how a single fingerprint can darken over decades into an iridescent blue shadow. These observations combine chemistry and aesthetics, turning the act of examination into something like art appreciation. Every 1975 cent, even the most ordinary, becomes a canvas painted by oxygen and time.in the marketplace. Prices for high-grade examples continue to edge upward. While not rare, the coin's copper composition made pristine surfaces fragile. A moment's mishandling during packaging could leave marks invisible to the naked eye but decisive under magnification. As a result, superbly preserved coins earned premium grades, MS67RD or higher, and collectors competed for them. Auction catalogs described each piece with reverence, detailing strike sharpness, luster, and microscopic features. The numbers attached to these sales were modest by comparison with grand legends, but they reflected genuine admiration for perfection. Parallel to this professional world, the folklore of the $1,000,000 penny kept resurfacing online. Videos, blog posts, and social media clips announced new discoveries, each claiming to have found the mythical fortune hidden in a 1975 cent. The stories blended fragments of truth, error coins, misstrikes, rare conditions, with imaginative leaps that magnified their value to fantastic levels. Though experts corrected the misinformation, they recognized that such tales served a purpose. They drew newcomers into conversation, kept public interest alive, and reminded people that history could be hiding in plain sight. The 1975 cent also began to feature in educational outreach. Teachers used it to explain inflation. In 1975, a cent could still buy a stick of gum. 50 years later, it could not. The coin became a tangible illustration of economic change. Museums displayed it alongside price charts, photographs, and minting tools, showing visitors how money evolves while ideals endure. Students handled replicas, feeling the raised image of Lincoln and the crisp lettering of E pluribus unum. And in that tactile moment, abstract concepts turned concrete. For metalworkers and artists, the old copper cents offered another kind of inspiration. Some melted damaged coins into sculptures or jewelry, celebrating their color and history rather than their face value. Others used the pattern of the Lincoln portrait as a motif in modern art pieces exploring identity and memory. The 1975 cent, with its mid-decade date and warm tone, became a favorite material, a small fragment of Americana that could be reshaped into something new while retaining its heritage. Over the years, archaeologists and urban historians have even documented the cent's presence in excavations. Buried sidewalks, demolished buildings, and old fairgrounds often yield pennies from the 1970s. Each find helps date a layer of soil or structure, turning pocket change into chronological evidence. The 1975 issue appears frequently, testifying to its immense mintage and wide distribution. It reminds researchers that everyday objects, not just grand monuments, preserve the story of a civilization. In the quiet world of private collecting, stories circulate of people who discovered their first 1975 cent in childhood and kept it ever since. Some mounted it in lockets, others sealed it in envelopes labeled "Lucky Penny." When interviewed decades later, these individuals rarely mention monetary value, they speak instead of sentiment. The coin marks a memory, a first allowance, a first purchase, a connection to parents or grandparents. Through these personal narratives, the cent transcends economics and enters the realm of heritage. As the digital age accelerates, physical coins have taken on a paradoxical new relevance. They provide a tactile counterpoint to invisible transactions. Holding a 1975 penny, one feels weight, texture, temperature, the tangible proof of exchange. For some, That sensation anchors them in reality, reminding them that value once had heft. In an era of screens and numbers, the copper disc whispers of craftsmanship and continuity. The future of the 1-cent coin remains uncertain. Policymakers debate its cost, mint directors weigh tradition against efficiency. Yet even if production ends, the billions already in circulation ensure that pennies will outlast us all. When that day comes, the 1975 cent will stand as a witness to the last great era of solid copper coinage. Its bright surfaces will have dulled to deep brown, but the design will remain legible, the legend, "In God We Trust," still arching over Lincoln's head, a phrase linking generations. In that enduring image lies the essence of the coin's worth. Not the rumors of impossible millions, nor the fleeting market prices, but the quiet testimony of persistence. A 1975 cent is history condensed into metal, forged by human hands, carried by countless lives, and capable, even after half a century, of sparking curiosity and reflection. Each time light glances off its worn rim, it reminds us that even the smallest artifact can hold an entire era. As the decades turned and the world became more connected, the 1975 cent entered the digital realm in ways its creators could never have imagined. Online auction sites allowed collectors separated by oceans to trade and discuss individual coins. A 1975 penny photographed under bright LED light could now travel the world in seconds, magnified on screens 1,000 times its actual size. Each scratch and reflection became part of a public dialogue about condition, authenticity, and beauty. In this new space, the old copper coin took on a second life, no longer confined to pockets and drawers, but existing as an image, a point of connection between strangers. Forums and social networks devoted to numismatics grew into vast archives of shared knowledge. Members compared die varieties, uploaded high-resolution scans, and debated whether a faint shadow on a 1975 D mint mark indicated doubling or mere wear. Experienced collectors patiently guided newcomers, explaining how to judge luster or why a certain color change was natural oxidation rather than error. The penny, humble as it was, became a teaching tool for digital mentorship, proving that even in an age of instant communication, slow observation still mattered. At the same time, professional grading transformed collecting into a global marketplace. Encapsulated in transparent holders labeled with barcodes and holograms, coins once handled freely were now preserved like miniature works of art. A 1975 cent graded MS-67RD by a respected service might appear at auction accompanied by detailed photography, provenance records, and population statistics showing how few reached that level. Bidding could grow intense. Collectors valued not only the coin itself but its position within a larger hierarchy of excellence. The thrill of pursuit, the same impulse that once sent prospectors into mountains, found expression in the hunt for the perfect cent. Amid this competitive energy, a quieter current persisted. Many people kept their 1975 pennies for sentiment alone, ignoring grades and market trends. They valued the coin because it reminded them of childhood, of family, of a simpler rhythm of life. Some passed these coins to their children as keepsakes, explaining that the metal was real copper, heavier than modern change, a relic of another time. In living rooms and attics across the country, these small gifts created threads of continuity linking generations. Museums and cultural institutions began to recognize the cent's broader symbolism. Exhibitions on industrial design highlighted the coin as an object of both art and mass production. Panels described how Brenner's portrait captured Lincoln's humanity, the slight smile, the furrowed brow, and how Gasparo's reverse echoed the architecture of national memory. Display cases juxtaposed uncirculated 1975 specimens with heavily worn ones, illustrating how identical beginnings diverged through use. Visitors, gazing at the shiny and the battered side by side, grasped a subtle truth about endurance. Perfection is fleeting, but character deepens with time. In academic circles, economic historians used the 1975 cent to explore questions of value perception. They noted that the coin's intrinsic metal worth, once negligible, had risen as copper prices climbed, creating a curious inversion where melting became theoretically profitable yet legally forbidden. This paradox, money that is worth more destroyed than spent, sparked debates about the nature of currency itself. Students wrote theses linking the penny's trajectory to broader patterns of trust, inflation, and nostalgia. The little coin became a lens for studying how societies assign meaning to matter. Artists, too, continued to find inspiration. Some photographed pennies corroded into abstract patterns, seeing in them landscapes of time. Others arranged thousands of 1975 cents into mosaics that shimmered between red and brown, a metallic quilt reflecting collective history. In installations and sculptures, the coin's familiar face multiplied into texture and rhythm, turning currency into commentary on value and memory. Meanwhile, stories of spectacular worth persisted in popular imagination. Newspapers occasionally reported a rare penny found, headlines hinting at fortunes awaiting discovery. The figures, 10 million, 50 million, 78 million, shifted with each telling. Experts reminded readers that no verified 1975 cent had fetched such sums, yet the myth endured because it satisfied a deeper desire to believe that miracles can hide in plain sight. Each retelling rekindled hope that an unnoticed coin could change a life. In reality, the true treasures lay in understanding and preservation. Those who studied the mint's operations learned about metallurgy, mechanical engineering, and quality control. They discovered that even a small change in die pressure could alter relief, that minute differences in planchet thickness affected strike clarity. To examine a 1975 cent under magnification was to peer into the interface between art and industry. Every ridge and groove told a story of pressure, heat, and precision. As environmental awareness grew, some saw the penny as a metaphor for sustainability. Billions of copper pieces, once mined from the earth, now circulated endlessly, reused rather than discarded. They embodied the idea that value endures when materials are respected. Teachers incorporated pennies into lessons about recycling, demonstrating that the metal within a 1975 coin might one day be repurposed into wiring or architecture, continuing its service in new forms. In households, the presence of old jars filled with pennies became a small archive of economic history. When families poured them out to count or roll, they often discovered a scattering of 1975 dates among later zinc coins. The older ones gleamed differently, heavier in the hand, their color richer. Children noticed the difference instinctively. That tactile experience, heft, temperature, sound, taught them something no textbook could, that not all value is virtual. With the passing years, the 1975 cent has moved from currency to artifact. Collectors catalog it not for rarity but for context, as part of the continuum linking early wheat cents to modern compositions. In numismatic exhibitions, it often appears near the end of the Copper Era section, bridging the romantic past of coin engraving and the computerized precision of contemporary minting. It stands quietly, unpretentious yet resonant, a reminder that the ordinary can become extraordinary through time and attention. And so the narrative circles back to where it began, with a small coin struck half a century ago, still shining faintly in the collective memory. Its market price may never reach mythical heights, yet its cultural and emotional value continues to expand. Every conversation, every examination under a magnifier, every whispered tale of hidden fortune adds another layer to its story. The 1975 cent endures not because of rarity but because of recognition. We see ourselves reflected in its resilience. When someone picks up a penny from the sidewalk, turns it between their fingers, and smiles at the date 1975, they hold more than copper. They hold a fragment of shared history, a symbol of persistence, craftsmanship, and the quiet hope that meaning can still be found in small things. That, in truth, is worth more than any number printed in a headline. As time flows on and decades pile upon decades, the 1975 1-cent coin settles into its final identity, not merely as currency, not merely as collectible, but as testimony. Every coin ever struck holds a date, and that date fixes it in the river of history. The figures 1-9-7-5, so ordinary on the die, have become coordinates on that river, marking an age when copper still gleamed bright, when analog still ruled the world, when the idea of money still had physical weight. Each surviving piece tells its own quiet story. Some lie deep in coin rolls, untouched since they left the mint. Others are scarred from half a century of circulation. They rest in drawers beside keys and paper clips, in jars labeled Vacation Fund, in museum trays under soft light. Wherever they dwell, they continue to bear witness, to labor, exchange, memory. A person can look at one and know that millions of hands have turned it, countless lives have brushed against it. That is what makes the smallest coin immense. Modern collectors, surrounded by digital marketplaces and instant information, often pause when they hold a 1975 cent. They feel the weight of copper, the faint grain of its rim, the smoothness where years of touch have polished Lincoln's cheek. In that moment, the distance between 1975 and now collapses. The coin becomes a bridge across time. It needs no explanation, no inflated price tag. It simply exists as evidence that something durable can emerge from the machinery of everyday life. The myths of extraordinary worth, the whispered numbers, the videos proclaiming impossible fortunes, may continue as folklore, and perhaps they should. Myths keep memory alive. They remind us that discovery begins in imagination. The truth is quieter but deeper. The value of the 1975 cent lies in its capacity to make people look closely at what they once ignored, to see art and history hidden in plain sight. Somewhere, perhaps in a future century, an archaeologist may uncover a handful of these coins sealed in an old jar, the copper darkened to deep brown, the dates still clear. They will hold them to the light and wonder about the world that made them, the machinery, the language, the people. They will know that these small discs once passed through the hands of millions who believed in the idea of worth. And in that realization, they will feel the echo of our own time. So the story ends where it began, with a simple penny, the 1975 United States 1-cent coin. It weighs just over 3 grams, measures 19 millimeters, carries the enduring image of Abraham Lincoln, and bears the words "In God we trust, liberty, and e pluribus unum." It is, by any measure, common. Yet within that commonness lies the extraordinary, the craftsmanship of its creators, the patience of those who kept it safe, the curiosity of those who studied it, and the imagination of those who dreamed it might be worth a fortune. Its market price will rise and fall, its surfaces will tarnish, and one day the denomination itself may vanish from circulation. But the story of the 1975 cent will remain, passed from collector to collector, from teacher to student, from parent to child. It will endure as a symbol of continuity, proof that even the smallest piece of metal can carry within it the weight of a nation's history and the spark of human wonder. And perhaps that is the true measure of value, not the dollars assigned by rumor or auction, but the meaning that endures when the world changes around it. The 1975 1-cent coin has long since ceased to buy much of anything, yet it continues to purchase attention, curiosity, and reverence. For as long as there are eyes to see its tiny portrait, and hands to feel its solid warmth, it will never be merely money. It will be memory made tangible, a circle of copper that holds the infinite within the ordinary.